Let's get into the Africa View debate today. We're looking at the interesting conversation of an ongoing debate that happens on the continent because of the situation of high unemployment in many African regions. We know that the continent is home to a vast and talented youth population, but many are forced to look beyond their borders for better opportunities. The debate rages on. Should African youths migrate to other parts of the world in search of a brighter future? Well, some argue that migration is a key to unlocking their potential. Others believe that their skills and talents are desperately needed at home. Today, we're exploring both sides of this timely debate. Joining us is Tonny Silas Dauda, who is a program manager and youth activist. Zigwai Tagwai is a development practitioner and humanitarian activist. Thank you to Tonny and Zigwai for joining us all the way from Nigeria. Well, let's start with you, Tonny. Let's get your side of this conversation. Should the youth leave the continent and find better opportunities abroad? What's your take? Is it a yes or no?
So I think this is an interesting question. We cannot shy from the fact that there are limited opportunities on the African continent, and African young people in the continent are known for their curiosity, they're known for their creativity, quest to explore.
Sure.
With these come the need to want to venture into new spaces, explore opportunities that are outside of the available ones on the continent. And yeah, young people should be allowed to seek for these opportunities wherever they think they can find them. And they should be allowed to have this opportunity to, explore their full potentials with the opportunities that come with migration.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So you are for this. Let's move the conversation to our other guest who say, you know what, maybe not. Let's come to you, Zigwai. I'm sure you are saying the opposite of what Tonny is saying. Tell us why.
So I am picking up from Tony. Good morning. I'm saying, Tony, it's a good thing that you realize the creativity that we have and the very explorative mindsets that young people have. And this is why I'm saying that because we're that creative, there is so much we can do back home. There are so many resources available to us. And imagine a pool of creatives across Africa pulling together their uniqueness and their distinct expertise to create solutions that do not only benefit them as individuals, but the society as a whole, and exploring the different niches that they have carved for themselves. So I am saying that we would leverage, and we can and are leveraging this creativity, this uniqueness, and very explorative minds that we have to build better back home rather than migrating. Thank you.
All right, Tonny, let's come back to you. Recently, there has been a scandal here in South Africa, a big scandal where, South African influencers were doing a campaign on called an Alabuga, camping in Russia. This is apparently, it was said to be a work opportunity for young women Africans between the ages of 18 and 22. They were advertising this campaign on their social media platforms, riling young women up to say, hey, there's space in Russia and you guys will get accommodation, you'll get to learn some education, and you'll also get to work and earn money under fair conditions. After some investigation, it seems that this is connected to some sort of human trafficking scandal. Of course, there are already so many, African women who've gone to Russia for these opportunities, and perhaps even other places of the world, because they think that the opportunities they seek aren't in their own country. How does this affect that mindset of pro-youth migration?
I think just like any other industry, any other issues, there will be people who would try to exploit people. But at the same time, this does not mean that migration in its sense is a bad idea. Migration provides opportunity for people to see different perspective, for whatever profession or whatever reason it is that they are migrating. Oftentimes, young people on the African continent are either migrating to seek jobs, or they are migrating to seek better education. And this in itself is an opportunity for collaboration, for bringing in, African perspective into some of the global challenges that we face. We can all agree that the challenges we face in the world today are not just unique to Africa. We have climate change, we have the issues of health, and these are cross-border challenges. If someone wants to explore a different perspective to how these issues can be challenging, then migration offers one way that these cross ideas can be facilitated. I think maybe a conversation that we should be having is, how can we make migration safer? How can we make migration more regulated in a way that it does not infringe on basic human rights, and we have issues like trafficking. But I don't think that because of the issues that we have, we should say, oh, young people on the African continent should not seek opportunities outside the continent. We should be having a conversation. The conversation we should be having is, how can we make migration more safer for young people who want to explore other borders?
Yeah, Zigwai, do you agree with that? Is it that simple? There's a lot of trafficking on the African continent, and sometimes it happens through these job application, these bogus, fraudulent advertising schemes on social media. You never know what's what, right?
Okay, I would start by saying thank you, Benjamin, and thank you, Tony, for your very amazing input. I would start by saying that the grass is greener where it is being watered and well cultivated, not always on the other side. And I think this is the situation at hand, where there's always this very wrong perspective amongst young people and even older generations about how migrating to other climes gives a better life, without thoroughly thinking about all of the consequences or negative effects that comes with that, or the processes that you have to follow. And I would say that it's not about just putting in place mechanisms that would address these things. It's not so easy, honestly, because there is always a clause to these things, and people always find ways to cut corners. Right now, we're even talking about putting in place mechanisms to make migration safer. We do have policies, we do have protocols, we do have institutions with responsibility both ways across Africa and across these climes that we're migrating to. However, there are always loopholes, and that is why I'm always on the side of caution and also taking calculated risk. How about we take leverage, or leverage the opportunities that we have within our own spaces? Why would you risk your life? Because we're just talking about trafficking, and there are people who, aside trafficking, lose their lives in transit. So they don't even get where they're going to. Some of those people take this risk, they sell off everything they have. And for people who even arrive there and find a good job or a job, it's not as easy as we make it seem most of the time. If it's not some sort of job that has maybe headquarters there, and you're just moving for work and coming back, it's really not easy. You find people trying to hide and smuggle themselves because the authorities are checking your papers and all of that. Why do you have to make yourself so uncomfortable when really there is love at home? And there is that peace of mind. Really, there's no place like home. There is the comfort and the peace of mind that you have, even trying to navigate processes, trying to navigate even the same challenges that you're facing there. You may not have a job here, but there are always things you can pick up and build yourself over time until you're stable. And even at that, there are always safe spaces. You have family, you have, the truth is, Africans as a whole are very homely and accommodating.
Yeah,
There's no way you'll
absolutely,
find
Zigwai.
yourself in
Sorry, Zigwai, to
trouble
cut you
and
off there. I have to take a
yeah.
break, but we'll come back to that. There's nothing like home. That's the argument that Zigwai is having there, while Tony says, expand your horizons. What's your take on this one? Remember, you can find that conversation, and we want to get your thoughts on the Move poll. You can find it on X and go to at Channel Africa 1. We've got our poll question. Which form of art, no, that's an old one, but we're asking, should African youth migrate outside of the continent to get more opportunities? Give us your thoughts there. It's 22 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. Let's take a break.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So when you think of African music, you think of Kwasa Kwasa, high life music from West Africa, Afrobeat from West Africa, of gospel music or faith music or spiritual music. But when we think of reggae music, we go to the Caribbean, and if it's Africa, we only think about Lucky Dube. Well, I'm here to introduce you to some reggae music from Africa. Salif Keita with Dakan Fair from Mali, and I must say this one was a real shock for me because I never had imagined Salif Keita on a reggae beat, but listening to him, it just proved to me how versatile he is as an artist, because you'd be expecting him to be on that vibe of West Africa, of ballads, but he really proved that he is very versatile, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
10:23 Central Africa time. With this is the African View debate here on Channel Africa, and we're having a debate about whether or not the African youth should be seeking opportunities abroad, and of course still helping us on this particular debate, taking both sides of the argument today, is Tonny Silas Dauda, Program Manager and Youth Activist, who is pro-youth migration, and Zigwai Tagwai, who is the Development Practitioner and Humanitarian Activist, who is against youth migration. Well, let's continue this one, Tony. What happens to the skills at home? Let's speak about skills, right? There's a big reason why the youth is trying to migrate, or some youth is trying to migrate. There's a huge unemployment crisis for the youth here on the African continent. But there are a lot of skills that are necessary here to build our nations as is. Where do you stand when it comes to that? And what's the fine balance between youth migrating and growing and building skills and development here in our own African countries?
So I do believe, and I know that we do have an abundance of skilled human resources on the African continent. We do have that. You've equally pointed out that the jobs are not readily available at the moment. There are efforts to expand these job opportunities, be it through exploring the green economy or blue economy. But at the same time, we have to also recognize that Africa's population is a fast-growing one. In fact, the African continent estimates about 10 to 12 million new job seekers every year are produced for the limited jobs that are available. This is fact, and it only means that while we try to expand these job opportunities to make use of the skills that are available here, it is only normal and logical for young people to want to seek other ways that they can apply their skills. Maybe we might say, I'm sure maybe in the course of the conversation, the issue of the brain drain may come in. We're losing some of these skills that we have, but at the same time, young Africans want to play globally. They want to utilize their skills across the world and make impact across the world. And this only opens opportunities for, new jobs. I also want to say that for us to create new jobs and new opportunities to utilize the skills that are available on the continent, we do need resources. We do need funding for these opportunities to be created. And one effective strategy that has, seemed to have worked and has also been recognized by development banks, international organizations, is the fact that migration also helps to bring funding back onto the continent. You see, so when young Africans migrate to other climes and contribute to the development of other economies through the skills that they have, they do send money back home, which is also part of our culture and has been a significant way for raising funds for contribution of the development of the continent. So it is also a strategy. Yeah. Migration is also a strategy for, resolving some of the issues that we have here on the African continent.
All right, let's wrap it up with you, Zigwai, in terms of that point that, Tony was saying that, there is a skill development trade here, because when someone goes overseas, they get those skills that they probably don't have in their own country, and they can bring them back into their country at some time, maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, but it's still a good skill that that country would need. How do you respond to that?
I would say that, again, thank you, Tony, for sharing. However, I would use myself and Tony as practical examples. I would proudly and confidently say that I got my foundational, mid and tertiary education and skill development from Nigeria. I didn't move anywhere, and I got quality education. I didn't just get education in terms of the four walls of a school. I became street smart, intellectually smart. I built capacity over time, learned community service, got visibility from these climes that we are talking about because of the quality of skills I was able to develop within Africa. And it is the same thing with Tony, I'm very sure. None of your educational exposure was outside of Africa as a whole. Yes, you even transcended Nigeria. However, this is Africa. And the point I'm making is a lot of times we fail to see the value that we carry or the gold that we have. Gold goes through a lot of very strenuous process for refinement. And we need to be able to be patient enough to see, first of all, the value that we have as Africans. We have quality. We're talking about when people even make the excuse of brain drain. I tell you, what percentage of young people are actually migrating? Very minute if you check it. So really, we have the bulk of our brains still back home, and these brains are still very active. These are the brains that are bringing up startups that are getting funding from Africans. We have people like Tony Elumelu that is funding Africans across various African countries, doing a lot of things across the continent and even outside. I have practical examples of even exposure when we're talking about opportunities in terms of working cross culture and all of that. That's, well, thank you to technology. We have people who work remotely.
Yeah.
I like to use very practical examples so that people who are watching and young Africans know that it is possible. For me, representation is very key.
Yeah.
It is as a result of these skills I have built in Nigeria, which is an African country, through my life, that I was visible enough for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which was in the US.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Unfortunately, I think we get the gist of where you're heading with that, and that's amazing. And I'm glad that you're also a practical example of your end of the debate. But we'll have to leave the debate there as we run out of time. Thank you to both of you, Tonny Silas Dauda, as well as Zigwai Tagwai, on engaging us on today's debate. Very good points from both sides of the argument, and I think anybody can say, you know what, because of this particular argument, moment. This is where I stand. And I think both make really valid points. So thank you both to you, Program Manager and Youth Activist Tonny Silas Dauda, as well as Development Practitioner and Humanitarian Activist Zigwai Tagwai. Let's hear your thoughts on the debate as well. At Channel Africa 1 is our X handle. Participate in our On the Move poll. Let's bring back File Lengwati, who has our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.